Friends of the media, good afternoon. Welcome to the press conference. The Chief Executive and her team will first deliver opening remarks, and then the floor will be open. In light of the epidemic, please observe social distancing at the press conference. Without further ado, I will now invite the Chief Executive to speak. Friends of the media, members of Hong Kong, with concerted efforts in our community, since the end of November, when the fourth wave of the epidemic began, basically has come to a close. According to the government's expert, Professor Yuen Kwok Yong's announcement last Saturday on analysis of the COVID-19 situation, there was a 4-year-old child, 4 foreign domestic helpers, some construction workers, and 1 nurse found to be preliminary positive should not be regarded as recently confirmed cases locally. In other words, the last time we identified a local confirmed case was the 23rd of April, 37 days ago. But perhaps you have just received news that we do have 1 preliminary positive case involving possibly an untraceable local case. So the Center for Health Protection at the moment is sparing no effort in launching an investigation. An announcement will be made in due course. It shows that in order to achieve zero infection, there is practical difficulty. That is why our press conference is titled Early Vaccination for All today, so as to urge members of the public to be vaccinated as soon as possible. We must not let our guard down, and at the last press conference held on the 12th of April about vaccination, I announced the new direction in fighting the epidemic, as we need to step up infection control measures to prevent the emergence of the fifth wave. Starting from the 12th of last month, this new direction in fighting the epidemic is still in force as announced in April, and in the past month our situation has been stable, with different sectors of the community and businesses resuming normal operation. Whilst remaining vigilant, the government will continue to impose stringent measures to prevent the importation of cases. The Secretary for Food and Health will speak on the matter in a moment. The most important, or rather the only solution to effectively fight our way out of the epidemic, is to appeal to the public to be inoculated en masse so as to create an effective safeguard. In countries with higher vaccination rates, cities and countries alike, there is proof that with high inoculation rate, the number of confirmed cases and fatalities dropped significantly. And in these countries and places, the social distancing measures are gradually being relaxed. For Hong Kong's vaccination program, it began on the 26th of February, and today marks the 95th day of the program. And so far, we have inoculated through 2.36 million of the population. 1.36 million of our population have received the first dose, accounting for 21% of those above 16 in Hong Kong. And about 1 million in our population already received the second dose. In the coming 3 months until the end of August, we believe this will be a crucial period in fighting the epidemic. And that is why we are now launching this new campaign called Early Vaccination for All. We seek to substantially boost the inoculation rate to create effective immunity in the community so that we can return to normality as soon as possible. We hope that before September, we'll be able to get this done. In other words, to substantially increase the vaccination rates so that even with the arrival of the fifth wave of the epidemic, our different sectors of the community will not be affected. And we also have 1 million students in Hong Kong, and we need to make sure that by September they will be able to return to classroom for school safely. And in order to express gratitude for members of the public who have received 2 jabs of COVID-19 vaccine to help create immunity in the community, under the Early Vaccination for All initiative, a number of incentives and reward schemes will be rolled out. The Secretary for Food and Health will brief you in a moment on the adjustment of social distancing measures with vaccine bubble as the basis. This is, after all, the major incentive for encouraging members of the public to hesitate no more and be vaccinated. Now, the Secretary for Civil Service will also announce in a moment the vaccine holiday provided to civil servants and other employees of the government as the major employer in Hong Kong. We understand that government support is needed, and the Secretary for Innovation and Technology will be demonstrating to you today the method of verifying vaccine records for the purpose of entering into lucky draws and receiving other incentives. In fact, I have issued letters to over 100 real estate developers and retail outlets and townsmen associations to appeal for the support to join our campaign. Definitely the business and commerce sector will be supporting us, and announcements will be made in due course. May I also stress that vaccination will be the major facilitation measure, or rather an essential requirement for cross-boundary travel, for work, for leisure. So after being vaccinated, these people will be able to join the first batch of travelers crossing the boundary for work or for leisure. Before I defer to the secretaries, some say that the government should better explain the consequences, adverse side effects of the vaccines. And I am delighted to have with me Dr. Thomas Zhang, the former controller of the Center for Health Protection, to explain the vaccines to you. Dr. Zhang, good afternoon. We understand that quite many people are concerned about the possible adverse side effects of vaccines, and they are rather deterred as a result. So let me spend the next few minutes to explain to you the efficacy, safety of vaccines and to dispel misunderstandings. Now, for example, according to a news report, a member of the public unfortunately succumbed, and a few days ago, the person had received COVID-19 vaccine. So the natural association is whether the person died as a result of the vaccine side effects. This is rather an illusion. This is rather a misunderstanding of seeing the tree for the forest. Now, according to the HA's figures, as in April, every day, the number of patients who passed away in public hospitals stood at about 120 per day. So let's imagine among the 120 patients who passed away in a day, if just any one of them had been vaccinated earlier, it would be quite easy to single the patient out for detailed feature reporting. And the remaining 100 cases or so would not be reported in the media. So that means we're only seeing the tree. That is the patient who got vaccinated before he died. But at the same time, if you take a look at the forest, actually over 100 patients died within the day. So that's really the misunderstanding that the vaccine could cause the patient's death.
Or if there is a report that 8 people have to be hospitalized after vaccination, proportionally, the proportion is less than 1 in 1,000. 80% of these people are suffering from minor or transient discomfort. They may be anxious, they may be in fear, they may panic, they don't have to be hospitalized, they'll be discharged the same day. Scientifically, we have to look at every single serious case to do with vaccination. We do have an expert committee composed of professors and experts, and they will be analyzing and looking at all the medical record and all the frontline staff information and autopsy reports and so on. 20 cases of fatalities have been examined over the past 3 months. They've identified the causes of death. Some suffered from cardiac arrest. None of them had anything to do with the vaccination. They've also made comparison the death rates between the vaccinated people and unvaccinated people, and the rate among the vaccinated who passed away is not higher than those unvaccinated. So it's not a personal perception. They work on the basis of the WHO guidelines. We have a set of guidelines here, and they will be ticking the boxes on the basis of the guidelines. Now, this is running into 40 pages with all the specific steps and all the record, and they work on a scientific basis. So the experts are not merely the spokesman of the government. They're working on the scientific basis. Some questioned the efficacy because these vaccines are new development, and the development period was shorter. That's a fact, but we have to bear in mind that globally, the number of vaccinated people has broken all historical records. So we do have the safety data regarding the vaccine. So we are confident about the safety. 1.8 billion doses have been administered. 300 in Europe, 240 million in the US. This is more than 240 times that of Hong Kong. So globally, this has borne out the fact that the COVID vaccines are safe. This is happening in the world. Why is it not happening in Hong Kong? In the interest of time, I don't think I will be able to go over all the data here. I don't expect to be able to change people's minds at all the time, but we can calm down about this danger of vaccination, and we have to make sure that we're not seeing the wood for the trees. Thank you, Thomas. And I hand you over to the SFH. Friends of the media, fellow citizens, like the Chief Executive said a moment ago, in Hong Kong, the fourth wave of infection has come to an end, but a new wave is likely to hit us any time. The variant strains are more transmissible, and they can cause more severe situations. Once we're hit by a new wave of infection, it's likely to transmit pretty rapidly. If we cast our sight at Taiwan, the new wave has seen an increase from 1,000 cases to 8,000 cases in just about 10 days. So we have to tread very carefully here. So the government will be working on the basis of this new direction to guard against any importation of infection into the community. And we will be continuing with our testing work. Globally, COVID is still raging. We cannot relax our border control, our border measures. The government, based on the risk assessment and vaccination, has introduced all these measures. We are paying attention to the situation the world over. There are 20 jurisdictions that are in the Group B, and in the light of the development of the cases, the government will be specifying a number of places. Cambodia, Thailand, Vietnam, they are designated as part of Group B, and the UK, we have removed it from Group A2, and in the light of the increasing vaccination rate in the UK, and after resuming the flight to Hong Kong, we haven't designated the UK as Group B. So including Taiwan, there are 29 places, or passengers from 29 places must have the negative testing results before they can board a flight to Hong Kong. For passengers that have not been vaccinated, they will be subject to 21-day quarantine period. For the vaccinated passengers, the quarantine period will be 14 days. Recently in Guangdong province, there are certain places that have seen some positive cases. In the mainland, they are controlling the infection very rigorously, and they are conducting tests in Guangdong province, and the cases are confined to specific areas. In Guangzhou, they have expanded the coverage of the testing measures. In Shenzhen, the transmission chain is pretty specific. There are also other measures in the mainland that are controlling the movement of people, and also to guard against any export of cases, like people will need to have the negative testing result of nuclear test before leaving. And we will be monitoring the situation, maintaining liaison with the Guangdong authorities. As to the social distancing measures, according to the international experience, when the vaccination rate is not high enough, any relaxation of measures is likely to give rise to a rebound. So we will be working on the basis of the new direction and implement the vaccine bubbles when we relax the social distancing measures, so that the economic activities and social life can resume. Depending on the premises and the nature of activities, the relaxation may include certain premises and the number of people and the capacity and the operating hours, and also the distancing between groups, and also the mask requirements. We understand that the members of the public would like to gather together with their family members for a meal and so on. So for the food establishments, the vaccinated people can gather together in higher numbers, and they can dine till later hours. Basically, we are relaxing the Group D food establishments. For the vaccinated patrons, they can bring along the unvaccinated people, like children and elderly people, to join them for meals. If in a family, 2/3 of the family members are vaccinated, the other family members who aren't vaccinated because of age and other reasons, they can still be allowed to dine for longer hours, and they can be joining in the same table, like up to 12 at a table, and that will enable people to dine out more often.
And then on the basis of vaccine bubble, some premises can now reopen, such as karaoke, nightclubs, bars and pubs. If all staffers have been vaccinated, or if they're subject to regular testing on the grounds that they are physically not suitable to be vaccinated, and if all patients have been vaccinated as well, then there is a relaxation to allow more patients at the table, and there will also be an increase in the allowed capacity in the restaurant up to, say, 75% or more. And these premises will also be able to extend their operating hours. These measures are all relaxed on the basis of the vaccine bubble. In the following weeks, we are going to liaise with the sector. We hope that at the new cycle of social distancing measures on the 10th of June, we'll be able to implement the new relaxed social distancing measures. As unvaccinated people tend to have a higher risk, in light of the possible surge of or outbreak in the fifth wave, the government will require people who have yet to be vaccinated to observe more stringent restrictions at the time of their arrival, for example, or when they are classified as close contacts. They will be required to observe a longer period of quarantine at designated locations. For staffers such as the healthcare profession, residential care home staff, and schools, etc., because of their risk exposure, they'll be required to have more frequent testing. Now, for construction sites, libraries, museums, cinemas, performance venues, sporting venues, etc. These premises also tend to have a higher risk of an outbreak. So if there is a fifth wave of the epidemic, we'll also consider whether we should restrict members of the public who have not been vaccinated from entering these premises. In order to return to normality gradually, there is only one way out for Hong Kong, and that is we must all make a concerted effort to be inoculated and prepare ourselves for the next wave of the epidemic. If you are vaccinated, you can not only protect yourself but your family members, so that even if you're infected, you will not spread the virus to your family members. You'll all be contributing to our society so that we can resume or return to normality as soon as possible. For those who are still adopting a wait-and-see attitude, we encourage them to be vaccinated as soon as possible. Secretary for Civil Service, members of the public, friends of the media, good afternoon. The government vaccination program was introduced on the 26th of February. This is the 95th day. Overall, the program has operated smoothly. Around the world, about 1.9 billion doses have been administered, and close to 830 million people worldwide have received the first dose, and whereas in Hong Kong, we have 21% of the population above the age of 16 who have received the first dose, and over 1 million people in Hong Kong have received both doses. So first of all, let me thank all of you for making this concerted effort. As announced earlier, the community vaccination centers will operate until September. So please make sure you get the first jab before the end of August. There are still 3 months to go. That means 93 days. This is the golden opportunity to keeping the number of infection at bay. It is also a crucial moment for us to build herd immunity. So may I appeal to everyone to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. Since the start of the program, we have been listening to the public's views, and we have continuously adjusted our service and improving our service. About 85% of jabs are administered at community vaccination centers. And to further promote the government's vaccination program, since May, we have launched the outreach program, adopting the model of the manpower and resources in the community's vaccination centers. We go to business premises and other premises directly to help people get vaccinated. The outreach scheme has been warmly received, and earlier we have assisted the Hong Kong Sports Institute and the construction sector, etc., under the outreach scheme. And we are actively reaching out to different sectors of the community and organizations, including financial institutions, post-secondary education institutions, public service organizations, theme parks, to start a discussion on possible outreach vaccination services. As long as the relevant organizations have organized for a sufficient number of staff members interested in getting vaccinated, we'll be happy to make the necessary arrangements, including the provision of the necessary facilities and guidance. And in the coming 3 months, we will be placing our focus on outreach service. Interested organizations can call our hotline 39041490 for inquiries. To further encourage members of the public to get inoculated and to show our gratitude to your sustained and concerted efforts in fighting the epidemic together, the government has rolled out measures and have appealed to different sectors to roll out facilitation measures as well. The government has been encouraging civil servants to get inoculated as well. For civil servants working at the front line, having a higher level of risk exposure, they've been included in the program, and different bureaus and departments have also issued guidelines to allow civil servants to be vaccinated during office hours. And if there are adverse effects or any discomfort, the civil servant can apply for sick leave the following day. And this vaccination approach will gradually take over regular testing. For frontline civil servants who are tasked to take regular testing, inspection, and who are required to be in contact with the public, the government appeals to the frontline staff to be inoculated. And after they receive the first jab, and on providing a record, they will be exempted from taking the regular testing once every 14 days. Otherwise, they will be required to take a nasopharyngeal swab once every 14 days. The government is the largest employer in Hong Kong, and we've noticed that the business sector, some organizations have started the vaccine holiday arrangement, and we believe we should take the lead. From the 1st of June to the 31st of August, for civil servants receiving the first dose of vaccine, one leave day could be granted on the following day to allow the civil servants to take rest, and also to thank everyone for supporting the vaccination program. For civil servants who have, or government employees who have been inoculated before the 31st of May, they will also be entitled to 1 day off until the 31st of March. Guidelines will be issued soon, and there will be due announcement on the necessary arrangements to encourage employees to get vaccinated. The government has also appealed to public and statutory organizations to make the same arrangements for their employees, and the government's appeal has been warmly received. After all, if we could create herd immunity, the business sector will benefit from it as well. When possible, employers should strive to make it convenient for their staffers to get vaccinated, including a vaccine holiday. Finally, let me conclude that from the anti-epidemic efforts around the world, as we can see from experience, the epidemic situation could deteriorate very rapidly. So this is golden opportunity for us. Before the fifth wave arrives, we need to have early vaccination for all.
And I'll hand you over to the Secretary for Innovation and Technology. If companies and enterprises would like to ascertain whether someone has been vaccinated, there are some means. Alfred. Friends of the media, under vaccine bubbles, people will have to produce their own vaccination record. People can carry with them the paper record, and they can also use the IM Smart app to download the certificate, or they can have the QR code to store in the mobile phones. We have the QR code for the paper-based record and the e-record to make sure that the record cannot be tampered with and the record will be authenticated. In order to facilitate the members of the public this week, we will increase some means for the members of the public to store their record. We're going to launch the Leave Home Safe app 2.0. Once updating the record, they can use the new function, and they can scan the QR code on the paper record and store the certificate in the mobile phone. This is intended to facilitate the members of the public to use the Leave Home Safe app to record their own travel movement and also to show their vaccination record. Like the movement record, the vaccination record will only be stored in the mobile phone. It will not be sent to anywhere else. Other than this, those who are using IM Smart app, they can also download the record the vaccination record and put it in the e-wallet, like the cinema ticket and so on. We are liaising with the mobile phone operators about the arrangement. I expect that in a day or two, in iOS of Apple phone, the function will be available. When we launch the vaccine bubble, we've also developed a new app to verify the vaccination record. If someone has been vaccinated with one dose, this will show one dose. If one has been vaccinated with 2 doses, that the 2 doses will be shown. If none has been, no vaccination has taken place, there will be nothing to show. And we would encourage incentives to be made available to those who have been vaccinated. We will take advantage of technology for the operators to verify the vaccination record. I mentioned the QR code method, and this would enable the traders to ascertain the vaccination record and offer the relevant discount. We'll be liaising with the merchants to give technical support and to help them develop the right app and system. And we encourage the members of the public to take part in this early vaccination for all campaign. Other than verifying the vaccination record, the government can also do something else. If a lucky draw is going to be arranged to reward the vaccinated people, they need to get a license, because this is governed by the law of Hong Kong. If any organizations would like to launch any competition or any lucky draw, they need to make an application for a trade promotion competition license with HAB. Even if a charitable organization were to offer a raffle ticket, they need to apply for a lottery license. In order to facilitate these activities, the HAD has already set up a hotline and also an information desk. We have the hotline 2117-2783 for this one-stop service. Basically, we welcome and encourage and appeal to various organizations to support this early vaccination for all campaign to speed up the vaccination program. If there is anything else that the government can do to facilitate, we will certainly adopt the same attitude to make things happen. So much from us. I welcome any questions. Please raise your hands and also identify yourself before putting questions. 2 questions per journalist, please. RTHK, Chief Executive. You mentioned earlier that there will be holiday incentive for the civil servants to get vaccinated. If they don't get the jab, would there be any labeling effect in a way that they are going against a government policy? Would there be any action to penalize them? And also, it was said earlier that a batch of vaccines will expire by August, and there may be some donation. What is the arrangement like? Will you be donating the vaccines to the neighboring jurisdictions like Taiwan, for instance? Will you consider this kind of donation without any precondition? You keep saying that September will be the golden period. that this is the school opening time, and it is also said that getting the caseload down to zero and high vaccination rate will be linked to your second term in office. I defer to Mr. Nip, and for the procurement of vaccines, I defer to Professor Chen. Right, about the vaccine holiday, we said very clearly that civil servants are there to implement government policies, and we do have the obligation to get the jab. And on the question of vaccination, everybody is doing so on an informed basis. And we've also taken some facilitating measures to facilitate vaccination, like they can get a jab during office hours. And we're also proposing this vaccination leave. And this is intended to enable civil servants to get the jab, to get some rest. And this would enable the civil servants to take up their duty. Now, we are at a critical juncture. We need to have a high vaccination uptake in order to guard against any potential new wave, and also for us to resume our life. And it is from this perspective that we take the measures. Vaccines. That the community vaccination center will be there until end of September. We cannot have these ad infinitum. So in the coming 3 months, it will be the critical time for us to bring the case down to zero and for us to build up this protective shield. So we are urging the members of the public to get the jab, the first jab, before September. As regards the supply of vaccines, the vaccines that have arrived in Hong Kong will have an expiry date, and we have liaised with the pharmaceutical company and adjust the volumes that will come to Hong Kong depending on the situation. For the vaccines that have been procured but have not been shipped to Hong Kong, we will assess the situation, and the government will be taking the decision and making the arrangement later on.
Professor Chen? All right, thank you. In terms of vaccine procurement, the government always attach importance. And as you know, we have 2 vaccines for COVID-19, and the procurement is based on the experts' opinion, and that these vaccines are safe, reliable, and effective. At the moment, about 20% of the population have been vaccinated. But in order to build up the shield, we still need to increase the rate, and that is why we are deploying different means to appeal to the public and to make them understand the importance of getting vaccinated. As for the inventory of vaccines, we do keep in view the inventory level because of the particular storage requirements of some vaccines, and we also keep in view the overall arrangements of delivery and the rate of vaccination. At the moment, we are taking different means to encourage the public to get inoculation. On the delivery of vaccines and the rate of vaccination in our population, we will continue to keep these in view and liaise closely with the supplier. Now, if in the future there is surplus, will consider the overall circumstances. Now, some people suggest that perhaps we should donate the vaccines, and because of the advance purchase agreement the APA signed with the pharmaceutical companies, we are bound by certain clauses on the use of vaccines and their disposal. So this is subject to the agreement signed, and in future, if donation of vaccine is necessary, we will liaise with the World Health Organization. There is the COVAX mechanism, and donation can be made in the context of worldwide procurement. Let me supplement that Hong Kong is really blessed because we have a sufficient supply of vaccines. In fact, in recent weeks, a number of countries have contacted the government as well as myself through the consular offices, proposing that we resell some of the vaccines or we lend some of the vaccines or donate vaccines to them. But because of the advance purchase agreement, as Professor Chen explained, it's difficult for us to do so. And at the moment, we still have members of the public waiting to be vaccinated. We're not at the stage where vaccines could go to waste. So I'm afraid we cannot meet these countries' requests. However, in the event that some vaccines cannot be used before their expiry date, then we will rely on the WHO's mechanism. Now, to answer this reporter's question, I think the answer is very simple. Day in, day out, I perform the duties and functions as the chief executive, that is, to safeguard the overall interests of Hong Kong. And what you ask is not something on my mind. This lady, reporter in white. Good afternoon, Mrs. Lam. I'm from cable TV. My first question is this. How many civil servants at the moment have been vaccinated? Can you provide the figures? Is it that the response from the civil servants is not really keen that you roll out this initiative? And after introducing this incentive, what is your estimate of the number of civil servants who will be vaccinated? And recently, we've seen a surge in the number of bookings for vaccines, etc. And in the business sector, recently, we've heard another incentive of a lucky draw for a luxurious flat. If there are people who get vaccinated only because of these incentives, then could we be creating some undesirable outcomes, albeit with good intention, because these people may not be suitable to get vaccinated? Mr. Nip, for civil servants, they make their own bookings in their own capacity. Earlier, we had priority groups, and some colleagues already received the jabs under this category. So we do not have the figures at hand. However, through the head of grades and the chief of bureaus and departments, we've been able to mobilize our colleagues, especially for frontline civil servants. I must say that the overall vaccination rate will be higher than that of the general population. And about the arrangement of vaccine holidays, we consider the fact that after receiving the jab, our colleagues may need some time to take a rest. So this is rather a matter of convenience for them to get vaccinated. As I said at the outset, there is clarity on this matter. For civil servants, they also have the responsibility to get vaccinated. Starting from today, over 50,000 frontline civil servants have been incorporated into our program, under which if they get vaccinated, they can be exempted from regular testing. Otherwise, they'll be required to undergo testing once every 14 days. So with these incentives in place, I believe the vaccination rate among civil servants will go up. Well, I think for everyone, health is of paramount importance. So despite the incentives and the rewards to boost vaccination coming from the business sector, I think all in all, members of the public should first consider their physical condition and their health. Now, but like Dr. Zhang just now said, many people are worried at the moment about vaccination only because of their misunderstanding or misinformation from news articles. So let me appeal to the media outlets as well. In order to help fight the epidemic, when you report on the epidemic situation, please be objective and fair.
Civil servants to get jabs. And if this doesn't work, what's the next step to boost vaccination among government workers? And ultimately, would making it kind of mandatory be an option? For example, making it mandatory for people to be vaccinated in order for them to enter the government headquarters, for example. Would that be an option in the end? Second question to Mrs. Lam, and is reaching the vaccination rate of at least 70% your target before September? And what's your appeal to the private sector? Will you appeal to the private sector to hand out more flats, hand out theme park tickets? Because according to your slogan, you're advertising that this is more than just a jab. But look, listening to appeals or initiatives from the government, citizens might not be really motivated by this drive as of yet. So what's your appeal to the private sector? Thank you.
Patrick. Okay. Well, I'm sure that this new initiative of granting 1 day of vaccination leave in the form of authorized absence per dose would be helpful to colleagues, to government employees, because it would facilitate them and enable them to have sufficient rest to recover from vaccination should there be any side effects. And as you can see that we have adopted a progressive approach to facilitating colleagues to get vaccinated. We'll continue to monitor the situation and promote vaccination within the civil service.
Well, as far as the second question, when we chose this slogan that it's more than a jab, it has two meanings. One is it's more than a jab for yourself, to protect yourself and to protect your family members, which has been a slogan we have adopted for the past 3 months. It's more than a jab because this is the lifeline of Hong Kong. It will make Hong Kong capable of going out of this COVID-19 epidemic. If we have a high vaccination rate, we have a sufficient level of herd immunity, then business could go back to normal and travel could resume with the mainland and other parts of the world. So I hope members of the public will realize that it's not just taking 2 doses of vaccine. You are making a huge contribution to Hong Kong society. It's more than a jab in a very ordinary sense that apart from receiving the dose, you will have a chance, or you may have a chance of getting something back, whether it is extra holiday provided by the employer, whether it is a lucky draw with certain goodies and things like that, or discount coupons in shopping malls, or free tickets to the theme park, and so on and so on. So this is a very tangible way in order to overcome what we call the vaccine hesitancy. I wish to think that people are not resisting vaccination because we have been growing up with vaccination. Kids have to be fully vaccinated before the age of 6. But there is a degree of hesitancy, wait and see whether there are something that will happen and so on. So in order to overcome that hesitancy and to invite people to spend an hour to make a booking on the website and then come forward to the CVC to receive the jab, we are giving you some more incentives, so to speak. So this is what we mean. So in terms of my appeal to the private sector, as I just mentioned in my opening remarks, I have signed off over 100 letters this morning to developers, owners of shopping centers, chambers of commerce and retail sector, as well as the clansmen associations, to appeal to them to offer whatever they feel comfortable or they are capable of doing. It is not for me to dictate what they should do, but I said and I told them in my letter that I'm gratified to see that some enterprises and organizations have already taken that initiative to implement measures in respect of their employees, their customers, or just members of the public. And these initiatives seem to have some positive results, although it's a very short period of a couple of days, but we have seen some positive results. So I believe that this is a time for concerted efforts in order to achieve the objective of mass vaccination within a short period of time. And when that mass vaccination is achieved, there will be a robust immunity defense being built up in Hong Kong, then businesses. And everyone in community will benefit ultimately. And then Hong Kong can press ahead with revival of the economy. So these are the appeals to the private sector. And I'm sure that after this press conference, individual corporations and enterprises will have something to say to echo the government's campaign drive. And it is also for all of us, including our media friends, to help promote and join hands in this campaign so that hopefully by the end of 3 months, we could reach a comfortable level of vaccination rate that will enable us to do what we want to do in returning to normality. Thank you.
One more English question. The lady in white at the front, please.
Hello. This is SMP. In the event of another wave of COVID-19 infection, unvaccinated people may be barred from entering some premises and may be under stricter entry rules. It is unfair for some people, such as pregnant women and those who have a medical condition. Do you think that unvaccinated people may take it as a punishment? Thank you.
Well, in all the things that we've been doing so far that requires vaccination, there is always an escape clause. That is, people who are medically not fit for taking the jab, and so on. So you need not be worried that it will be applied to the extent that people who are not medically fit will still be required to take a jab in order to do something which is very essential to their daily living, for example, going to school. Okay, so when you mentioned this word about fair, I hope people who have yet to take the jab will also realize that we need them to participate in order to be fair to all those who have taken the jab hitherto, so that all of us together could reach a higher level of vaccination rate that will keep the city safe. So this is what we are going to achieve, and we want to achieve under this Vaccination for All campaign.
Last 2 questions, please. The one in checkered shirt, please. Oriental Daily. The administration said earlier that for these lucky draws to be launched in the private sector, this is a good thing. Do you think the government should do more, like the lucky draw for property, and you can offer some HOS flats for lucky draw as well? And also the QR code for the electronic vaccination record. Does it only apply to Apple Wallet? And what about those who are using the Android system? On the first question, we do have our own considerations when it comes to the use of public funds to battle the COVID and also to roll out the vaccination. We have already spent quite a lot of public funds in this early vaccination for all. The provision of prizes should be left to the private sector. But they do have the duty as well, because they want to see the border reopen. They want to do more business. We are already, we have 29 CVCs. We have more than 1,000 doctors who are commissioned to administer the vaccines on our behalf for free. I think the private sector can offer more incentives. We've seen the organizations and corporations that are doing just that. This is precisely the Hong Kong spirit. We're working in a concerted effort to achieve the common objective. I defer to Alfred. To make it convenient for the members of the public, we have liaised with all the mobile phone operators for people to use the e-wallet to store their vaccination record. The Apple system will be coming on stream in a day or two. So this one we go ahead first. For the other systems, as soon as they are ready, they will be launched in order to achieve the purpose of facilitating the public. We're liaising with Google and Huawei, and we hope that we can launch the same functionality in the two different systems. Last question, please.
This reporter on the left. Good afternoon. I'm from Ming Pao. My first question is for Professor Chan. You just now mentioned construction sites, museums, performance venues, libraries, etc. In relation to these premises, the government may consider imposing restriction on unvaccinated members of the public. Do you have a timetable, and are there exemptions? Next question. If we have an effective immunity shield because of the high vaccination rate, would you consider scrapping what you just proposed? Another question from Mrs. Lam. It seems that the fourth wave has come to a close, as you also put it in your opening remarks. The Hong Kong Alliance for Patriotic Democratic Movements of China application for June 4th vigil has been turned down. But at the same time, despite the proposed infection control measures, the application has been turned down. At the same time, you can hold the flower fair and other events at the Victoria Park venue. So can you explain that, Professor Chan? As explained just now, for some premises, the risk of having an outbreak is higher. The infection risk is higher. But what I just said is not about the current situation, but about the possible arrival of the fifth wave. In the event of the fifth wave's arriving, if we are to impose infection control measures, since these premises are more risk-prone, we may consider restricting the entry of unvaccinated citizens, because you only have immunity when you get vaccinated. For those not yet vaccinated, relatively speaking, they face a high risk. So if there is a new wave of COVID-19 epidemic, we need to consider the necessary measures. And we need to build an effective shield. And by doing, in order to achieve that, we need to have 70, 80, or even 90% of the population inoculated. So we may adjust the measures. Now, please note that when Professor Chan explained this point, she was referring to the possible new wave of the epidemic. Like Professor Yun said, if the new wave arrives, if we are prepared, we can weather the storm. But otherwise, there should not be the stop-and-go arrangement, because we do not want to see a repeat on class suspension, etc., as we have seen last year. And you may recall in April when I announced the 4 Rs in our new direction in fighting the epidemic, we need to refrain from a stop-and-go approach, and that's one of the Rs. So in order to avoid having a stop-and-go, the line should be drawn at whether you have received the jabs or not. But we don't want to see that. If we have an overall high inoculation rate, then I believe the gatherings can take place. At the moment, under Cap 599G, the 4-person gathering restriction remains. You talked about the application of a public gathering and a protest, and the applicant already filed an appeal, and the decision has been made, so I'm not going to comment on the case further. The case has come to a close. Only to say that we respect the legal proceedings. As to under what circumstances somebody would be breaking the law, I would like to emphasize that we cannot take things out of context to say whether a slogan or an act is against the law or not. We need to consider all the circumstances, the evidence gathered before coming to a decision. Thank you for attending. And once again, let me appeal to media outlets that the media plays a very important role in Hong Kong. So may I appeal to all of you to support our campaign, Early Vaccination for All, so that we can see light at the end of the tunnel as soon as possible. And I would say that vaccination is the only reliable method. And in fact, it's not unique in Hong Kong. There is proof in other countries as well. So I appeal to everyone to support our work. That's the end of the press conference. Thank you.